Morning, there we go. Good morning, councillors. Today we're giving an update on the savings that was presented to the APR VFM committee on the 7th of March. So this has been referred to the Finance and Performance Committee. So we're just basically repeating the presentation we provided on the day. Basically, the savings report was presented. Gives basically a progress for the 6 months to the 31st of December in terms of how we're tracking on our savings. We're also going to give today a progress on some sort of 3 key items that are contributing towards the savings for Auckland Council. Those are corporate property strategy, robotic process automation, and the building consent and spec mobilisation. And we have Mark, Rod, and Debbie here to present on those items. So how are we going on the progress? So before I step through that, I'll just give a bit of a background in terms of the savings. The 10-year budget included a $62 million savings over 3 years, and this forms part of this financial strategy to ensure that we drive efficiencies through the organisation. The target for this year is 23 million, and we add a further 23 million the next year, and then a further 16 million the year after. That sort of adds up to the 62 million. That is basically, it's $21 million more than what we had in the previous LTP, which we had 7 million, 7 million, and 7 million for the same corresponding periods that was set as part of the previous LTP. The current savings target in the LTP equates to about $560 million over the 10-year period. As at 31 December, we've achieved $13.5 million, and we have a further $9.5 million to be found for the remaining course of the year. This equates to about $135 million over the 10 years, and that's about 24% of the $560 million target. We also have, this is about the hard targets. On top of that, we also have a further $500 million worth of other benefits that we're looking to achieve, and a lot of this comes through in the capital program that doesn't directly correlate to hard savings as well as cost avoidance. So some of the numbers you'll hear, like say for example, in the corporate property strategy, is actually contributing towards the 500 million cost avoidance that we have. This sort of table gives a good sense in terms of where we're achieving the savings. As you'll note, the big one down the third from the bottom there, or second from the bottom, is 8.5 million. And that's from just really good, prudent financial management. So this is a range of a whole bunch of initiatives that are underway around just looking at our contingent workforce, looking at vacant roles, and really just putting pressure on the organisation to ensure that we save money. On top of that, we also have some savings that have been driven through the procurement process. And the examples there are the corporate property renegotiations, internet connection renegotiation, and in the ICT function. We also have some savings through the organisational design, and that's primarily around the commercial finance redesign that was undertaken earlier in the year, as well as the ACL disestablishment. So that's the benefits flowing through the finances. We also have some increases in non-rates revenue, and that's again is driven primarily from the booking system improvements that we've made, and we're actually getting better utilisation from our facilities, as well as that we have value for money, which has contributed to about $500,000 and in the communications and engagement area. We're still working really hard in terms of, obviously we note that there's still the outer year and the remaining savings to be achieved, and there's some really good work underway across the organisation. This includes things like the corporate property strategy, which I'll touch on, robotic process automation, and building consent. So we'll go through those in more depth, but there's also a whole range of other items that are underway, such as the corporate support review. So again, that's looking at how we actually support the organisation in terms of that corporate overhead and corporate functions. There's also sector shared services that we're looking at, and we've heard previously in this committee is around the multi-cloud data centre, which is also driving benefits through the organisation. There's future VFM reviews, again, that will be continuing to drive further savings through the organisation. So before I hand over, I guess it's just summarising, there's a lot of work underway, and we're very confident we're going to meet our savings target this year, and a lot of these initiatives are going to be driven into next year as well in terms of helping us achieve the following year's savings target. I'll now hand over to Rod, who will talk about corporate property strategy.
Thanks very much, Rob. So Rod Aiken, Head of Corporate Property. So, thank you. Rod Aiken, Head of Corporate Property. So we've renamed the corporate property portfolio strategy as Work Smart at Auckland Council as we start to engage more widely through the organisation to give it some personality. You'll recall that the property the strategy talks to a number of things, but primarily it responds to an organisation that was looking to consolidate to a series of hubs and responds to a request for more customer spaces throughout the network closer to our customers, and also respond to our staff request for more flexible spaces for our staff. So we achieved that through the consolidation from 10 buildings to 4 buildings, and particularly to those hubs to get that organisational consolidation for our operations teams to operate as one team. And we achieve spaces closer to our customers by energising and refurbishing some of the spaces that are underutilised in our existing buildings, which is our 31 spokes. And we also achieve more flexible spaces for our staff by reinvesting in refurbishing spaces, creating corporate Wi-Fi more widely through the network, and also providing laptops to all of our staff. Just from an overall profile and our value proposition, so operationally we achieved that consolidation of our operations teams for our customers and community. We get to not only energise spaces closer to our customers, that's our 31 spokes, but reinvest in our customer service centres and reinvest in our local boards, in particular the meeting spaces that the local boards operate out of. From a staff engagement perspective, we provide laptops more widely, working with Mark and the ICT team, and also refurbish the back office spaces in our libraries and leisure centres. Storage will be optimised, so reducing the footprint of our storage and the burden on ratepayers in that regard, and making it more efficient. And by divesting in a lot of old buildings, we improve the quality and de-risk our buildings. And then finally, and of importance today, is that we get to avoid $117 million worth of costs associated with renewals on buildings, with facilities, maintenance, cleaning, and also utility costs, energy for buildings that we will no longer require. Okay, so just the runs on the board to give you an update, and we're starting to run at all of these programs now. So 35 Graham Street is out to market. In fact, it closed in the weekend, the first stage. So that's now being reviewed this week. So that's the first stage of a 2-stage process. EOI has closed, which will then refine down to an RFP, request for procurement. 4 to 10 Merrill Street, you may have caught up, was out to market over the weekend. And that, of course, is the integration with the Aotea station. So that's now out to market as the first stage of a 2-stage process. At 6 Henderson Valley Road, we're currently in negotiation with Panuku for an interested party that talks about a fully integrated program with the wider Unlock Henderson program, so across the whole area of that relates to that location. In Manukau, we're working with Panuku and the Transform Manukau program to integrate the Katuku House disposal into that wider program. So these are all activations, that is Henderson Admin Building and the Katuku House are like activations for those Unlock and Transform programs. So the other sites, Orewa, Pukekohe and Papakura, Panuku and Corporate Property are working together to deliver development frameworks this year back to the local boards for review. In terms of the reinvestment, which is now very much in our focus, we're currently beginning a reconfiguration of 135 Albert Street, Auckland House, so that we can consolidate the staff that come out of Graham Street to create the Bledisloe House as the new CBD operations centre. And that'll go on over the next 12 months, so consolidation and reconfiguration of the spaces to get that efficiency play in the CBD. We have consolidated staff in Manukau Civic and Katuku House in the south, and we are working to consolidate in the north and west with an early exit of the lease at Takapuna, and we are in negotiation with the landlord and have a heads-off on that site to release further operational costs at that site. So we're working hard on that one as well. In terms of the spokes, we've got 4 now delivered, and we'll have 13 more delivered by the end of FY19, and have 10 back office areas in the libraries and leisure centres delivered by the end of this financial year. And then in terms of delivering for our staff and creating more flexible spaces, recognising that our staff is very much a council initiative to support our staff to work remotely and more flexibly. We're extending our Wi-Fi now to our library, corporate Wi-Fi, to our library network to enable staff to touch down in our libraries and to avoid unnecessary travel. In terms of the local board works and customer service centres, first runs for us are the Devonport Takapuna Local Board and Customer Service Centre. Those are new works, and the Franklin Local Board and Customer Service Centre, which are now in design for delivery this calendar year. And that's the corporate property update. Thank you.
We just might, Councillor Walker, is your specifically to work smart, your question?
Specific.
Yep. So we'll take that. It's very clear, Rod. That's really made it very clear for Councillor Walker.
So, in terms of work smart and the overall evaluation of efficiency savings, are we taking into account the efficiency of our customers, the public of Auckland? And in particular, I'm referring to ease of access for information around building consents, resource consents, and a number of other things that go to point of engagement at service centres and also access to data. So are we evaluating that?
Yes, so corporate property provides spaces that are in response to the requirements of regulatory services. So it's key to understand that we're not driving the changes in the way they're operating. But what I can say from a corporate property perspective is that we're endeavouring to support regulatory services and what they require. And what they require is to consolidate their staff to reduce the silos of the many buildings they locate in. And we're working with regulatory services to energise more spaces closer to their customers as they move into a booking regime with their customers on how they engage over consenting processes. So the answer is, from my understanding, is yes, we are responding to our customer requirements, and regulatory services are requesting that we make these changes and are tracking the performance of that as it relates to their customers. And I will also add that we do get to reinvest in our customer service centres and our other spaces where our customers engage with, which would be local board meeting spaces as well.
So specifically for Rodney, and I'm directing my attention to the Ariwa Service Centre, is it the case that the facility there for access to building consents, resource consents, and a number of other things that the public of Auckland rely on is going to be going soon? Are you familiar with that?
Look, through the chair, so there is no reduction in the amount of customer service centres in Oriwa, but it won't be in the current Oriwa building. So those services will be offered at a different location in Oriwa through a point that staff and customers can engage.
Okay, my other question is around the data. Is it the case that the historical data for building consents and resource consents as it goes to the Rodney database is not migrating over to the new system, and that information may well become inaccessible? Is that the case?
Look, through the Chair, I'm unable to answer that question. I think that's a question that would have to come through regulatory services or potentially no.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate an answer to that, certainly.
Through the Chair. So at the moment there is a consolidation of the legacy document management systems, and there is absolutely going to be a migration of all the existing documents and files that are kept in each one of the legacy systems into the new system. So they will still be there and still be able to access.
So can you confirm that that legacy information is going to be available in the migration to SAP?
Yes, I can confirm that.
Okay, so I'd just like to express my concern about that, because that's at odds with information that I'm receiving. And certainly the information that I'm receiving is that there could be a significant disruption to the access of information that goes to historical building consents, resource consents and the like. So I'd very much like to have that in black and white.
Yep, well, Councillor Walker,
I have a further question.
You should talk to Mark.
I will do that. I have a further question
about that with your concerns and who's giving you that information. Councillor Sayers.
I had a further question, Mr. Chair.
That's about 6, okay?
No, I've asked one question, now I'm asking another question. WorkSmart also includes value for money, I'm assuming, across the Auckland Council group. Is that the case?
So WorkSmart currently relates to Auckland Council and its staff. In terms of how council staff occupy space and how council staff reach out into to engage with their customers and community.
Okay, so in that case, I'll ask my question after we've covered workspace, so I have another question, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question around corporate property. It's picking up on a little bit of the theme of what's happening in Rewa, but my question is more specifically around the local boards and the provision for the local board officers. Are you able to give an update what might be happening with the Hibiscus and Bays local board premises, where they might be able to meet, and also the Rodney local board, and if they're planning to kind of have representation in both Kenew and Warkworth? Please, thank you.
Sure. So all of the local board spaces that aren't displaced by a building do get refurbished, so that would be Hibiscus and Bays. And I haven't got on me the actual date for that yet, but we're working through that program with local board services. In terms of the Rodney local board, then we are working to provide a range of spaces, recognising the actual size of the Rodney board area. So I expect, and there's still to be worked through, there will be a home for the Rodney local board. That could be Warkworth, but that's to be reviewed and finalised. And then we would like to provide additional meeting spaces for the Rodney local board, particularly to connect out west, further out west, because recognising the size and scale of that local board. So yes, very much aware of what you're saying, and we're working through the details, and we'd certainly like to give you a fuller update and time on that. Okay, cheers.
Mayor Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rod. Just a clarification on a couple of points. The $117 million in savings that you set out, that consists of not just maintenance and renewals, but it's also the day-to-day operating costs of operating out of those buildings, is it?
That's absolutely correct. And there's a lot of costs associated with running buildings, as you'll be aware. Yep. So basically, by avoiding those buildings, we avoid all the costs associated with those buildings and potentially unquantified risks that might come up into an ageing building profile over the next 10 years.
Okay. So if we had not consolidated the corporate properties, which I think the people of Auckland expected us to do, amalgamation, instead of needing 8 different sets of buildings will consolidate to something that makes more sense. We would have had to have raised rates to the extent to pay for that $117 million extra expenditure.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Question about the Takapuna lease. I think any of us that have gone over to Takapuna have a bit appalled that we've got this beautiful building that, you know, there appears to be nobody working out of it. It's very sparsely populated. What are the prospects of getting an early termination of that lease, and what are the projected savings?
Yeah, through the chair. So we are working hard with the landlord now, and we have a provisional agreement for an early exit. But and exactly as you say, it's very sparsely populated. So we have had good engagement with the organisation to consolidate out of that building, to provide every opportunity to achieve, to avoid the costs associated with the lease and cleaning. And, you know, if the current deal does not go through, we're now in a position to work hard to get another deal. And given the status of lease space throughout Auckland, we have a certain level of confidence that something will eventuate if this deal doesn't eventuate. But we're working hard with the landlord now to close out a deal to avoid lease costs.
Unless it's commercially sensitive, are you able to tell us on either of those options what sort of level of savings we might achieve by either better utilisation or early termination?
Yeah, so there's a number of aspects involved in that, but I think you might like to consider that there's more than $5 million of rental associated with these buildings. So we'll leave it at that at this stage, but there is potential for considerable savings.
Right, Debbie, is it? Yep, you're next. Oh, sorry, we do have some more people. Same question. Okay, Councillor Cooper.
My question is to you. I just was a bit concerned earlier around the questions that might undermine public confidence in the comments around not transferring Rodney records, and I wondered if we're just going to leave that hanging. That really concerns me as Chair of Regulatory, that we have the public hearing that, thinking that, you know, we've got our officer here telling us that those records will be transferred over, and then a councillor saying that they might not. And I just don't feel comfortable with leaving that hanging, and I think that we should have that clarified once and for all, if you would, Mr. Chair.
Yep, we'll ask Ian. Yep.
Oh, thank you. We've got a statutory obligation to make sure our records and our building records are available for the community, and we take that responsibility very seriously. I can make it absolutely clear today that all those records will definitely be available for business as usual and for customers who require it as part of a land information memorandum or any other property inquiry they may have.
So, I mean, for the public, Ian's our manager of building consent, so if he's saying it, I've got full confidence in that comment. Thank you.
I would agree. I would think we've got the two council main officers, staff involved in this, and they're giving us publicly the assurances, and the others are perhaps other concerns are hearsay, we don't know. Councillor Casey.
Hi Rob, just 3 questions based on what you said this morning and in the report here, and I'll give you all 3. Could you say something about universal access? I just spent yesterday with the Disability Advisory Panel, and that's one of their main topics. Secondly, you mentioned consolidation and reconfiguration of Auckland House. What does that actually mean? Are you getting rid of the tenants that are in there, or are you building? And the third one is, you talked about touchdown points for staff in libraries. Can you tell me, does that mean you're taking up public space, or what does that mean?
So in terms of accessibility, and you might think of diversity as well. So by reinvesting in spaces, new spaces, we're able to make sure that we achieve the very best approach to fit outs to improve accessibility. And you'll understand old spaces tend to not allow that very easily. or it's costly to retrofit. So we will get to apply very best standards as it relates to safety, accessibility, respecting diversity, sustainability. All of these things can be stitched into newer spaces. So that's the opportunity that exists when we get to reinvest in the portfolio. I think your third question, the second one, but the third point you made was around touchdown spaces. So by investing and creating new furniture in the back office areas of our libraries and leisure centres, we get to treat all of our staff with a sense of equity and respect through the portfolio. And that's nothing more than furniture as it relates to workstations and laptops. And that also provides the opportunity where space allows for Auckland Council staff to work in those spaces. And also we will energise the front of house of library spaces to provide staff with the opportunity when they're in those areas to touch down in the libraries and so that people can connect right through the library spaces on the corporate Wi-Fi. The second point is just...
To then that some of the public spaces can be given over to... Is that a yes to that question, which was, is some of the public space in libraries can be given over to staff for touching down?
It won't be given over to staff, but we'll just enable the corporate Wi-Fi to be received throughout the library spaces so that when they're in those areas, they can connect to their corporate Wi-Fi within all of the library spaces.
All right, Councillor Casey, can I just...
There was another question you didn't answer.
Could you bring your mic forward a bit, Casey,
Sure.
please?
There was another question he didn't answer.
Which I've forgotten, apologies.
Configure, what are you doing to Auckland House? Are you getting rid of the tenancy building? Or you?
We're not rebuilding the building. What we're doing is that we are basically restacking the building, and as part of that restack, we're reconfiguring the workstations to accept more people. So reutilising the fit out that we have and creating more project type spaces within the floor so that we can accept more people into the building to its design number, if you like, because we do occupy that space rather lightly and we want to increase the utilisation of that building. And we can do that by simply reconfiguring the workstations that we have and creating some more spaces in those buildings. We're trialling on level 10 at the moment. You're welcome to come up and I can show anyone around the spaces that we're doing to improve the efficiency of the building. But mostly what it talks about reconfiguring some space using existing fit out and also restacking so that we can get people into Auckland House. And yeah, unfortunate name. It's a proper name, so apologies for that. But it's about putting the departments in different areas of the buildings so that we can create the space in Bledisloe House to create the new CBD hub in Bledisloe House.
Can you comment about the tenants that are still in Auckland House? Are they in there forever? If we got rid of them, we'd have more space.
That's absolutely correct. And of course, getting rid of tenants attracts cost to council. At the moment, they're paying rent to council, so we have to balance that off. So we have more potential space at Auckland House, firstly to get the right number of people per floor. That's right for us from a value perspective. And also we have further capacity within that building through the 3 floors which have external tenants. But we would create a business case around that to take that space because that's outside this program. And we would do that with in full view of our CFO. And that has to be justified on a cost basis.
Councillor Philippian.
3 very short questions. There's a comment in here, or notation anyway, that 80% of our staff now want the ability to work remotely, flexibly. So will what we're doing now achieve that?
So what we do now provides the platform for staff will provide the platform for staff to move more flexibly. And to move more flexibly, you need to be able to operate off a laptop and off Wi-Fi, which is what we're working closely with ICT. And to work more flexibly, you need to be able to connect that laptop to a workstation throughout the portfolio or to a meeting room So that's what we achieve through this program of work. So we simplify, we create everything the same across the portfolio so that we get that sense of equity and connection throughout the portfolio. So we will enable staff to work more flexibly, we will enable it, but then there's always a management overlay on how our staff operate within teams and within the bounds of what our organisation allows for people to work flexibly.
That also includes remotely?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
That also includes remotely?
So that's a question for our people and culture team in terms of how people work, and often that's put as a management decision as well about how remotely people work. But it is becoming more normal for most organisations, if I can refer to what other people do as well, for most organisations to allow remote working, and that's something that Auckland Council is contemplating. We're only enabling that, that's for the organisation to determine.
Last question, Chair. How often do you then go back to our staff to let them know, update them on the progress of what we're doing?
Through the chair. So I think that's one thing that we want to be better at communicating to this group, obviously this forum, to our staff and to our executive about how we're moving on with this program of work. And we are increasing our comms, but we are, I would say, trying to be as engaged as possible to inform people on how things are going throughout the network. And there's a lot of different touch points in the network. There's this forum, there's our executive, there's the local boards, and with our staffs, there's staff groupings who work in back of house areas, libraries and leisure centres. There's staff who work in different corporate office buildings. So we need to bring all of this together and provide the right level of information about how things are happening when they are. That's very important. Yeah.
Right, Councillor Walker again, and we'll wrap up the property
Sure.
section.
Couple of questions just around corporate space. Has any consideration been given to reutilising the civic administration building that's in very close proximity and has now been lying empty for some years?
So the civic admin building is with Panuku, and they are currently in negotiation to dispose of that building. So that's where it currently sits.
How long does the negotiation take, and when will the negotiations fall over so that we can utilise it?
Councillor Walker, you can ask Panuku that question tomorrow.
Okay.
Do you have a second question?
I just have one other question then. Is it, and I'll just ask it through you first, is it appropriate for me to ask a question around value for money as it goes to council-controlled organisations?
Not as it relates to the corporate property portfolio, which is the council.
Not in relation to corporate property.
Okay.
Then I won't.
Councillor Watson, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, just a question on the reconfiguration of Albert Street. So we are, in essence, reconfiguring the reconfiguration that took place a couple of years ago that cost, I don't know, over $50 million. Is that correct? So what's the same spaces that were reconfigured to allow staff to go in there?
That's correct. What we're doing is reconfiguring the fit out to enable more staff to come in and work more flexibly within that building.
So what does that cost?
So from a cost perspective, I'd have to get back to you on the numbers on those. But it's part of the overall balance of the portfolio in terms of reconfiguring all of our spaces to create flexible spaces for our staff. So you can't do one part of the portfolio and achieve what we're looking to achieve.
In terms of civic administration building, I'm just looking at the overall savings. Obviously, you know, this is giving us a breakdown on our savings as a whole. And I understand that it rests with Panuku. It was a civic administration building. It was, you know, the same as Orewa and these other entities. Is there going to be some evaluation of the cost or the lost income to council with the 4 years of it lying idle? Is that going to be factored in somewhere? Because I think if we're going to be accurate in our savings, then that was a council building. there should be some allowance for that. Is that in your plan to do that, or will we have to pursue that with Panuku?
Look, that is probably a question for Panuku. It sits outside the corporate portfolio.
Right. Debbie.
Good morning, councillors. I'm Debbie Acott and I'm currently acting in the finance transformation space. I just wanted to give you an update on robotic process automation. So we've had a project going to set up this, and now we've got it's in BAU, and so we have we now have the ability for staff to come up with ideas that might be able to be automated. I'll just give you a little bit of a background of what robotic process automation is and what it isn't. So we don't have physical robots around Albert Street walking about. If you think of a pianola, which is the piano that plays itself, if you watch a computer that's got a robot on it, it just looks like there's somebody sitting there entering into data constantly, 24 hours a day. So if you think of repetitive, mundane tasks that staff quite often have to perform, this would take the place of those. And it enables staff to concentrate on the value-added activities. So we've had this programme deployed since February, and since February 2018, we've generated benefits of over $848,000, of which $200,000 is direct budget savings. So I'll just give you a couple of examples of where we've made these savings. For the LTP last year, for the consultation process, when people are putting in their submissions, we used to have to hire about 40 temps to be able to analyse all of these submissions and theme them for staff to be able to answer and assist with the going back for the LTP. We've been able to reduce that to 20 temps. So that's a reduction of half the amount of temps that had to be hired for that consultation process. So just one other one that I want to draw your attention to is in the animal management space. So when somebody used to phone up because there'd been a noisy dog or an escaped dog, they used to have to enter all the information into our system and then enter all the information into the animal management officer's system, and the two didn't talk at all. So now it's automatically transferred into the other system and their answers are automatically transferred back. This is the advantage that people are getting out there. The animal management officers are getting out there to the issue much quicker than they used to be able to. And also when people phone back in and they want to get an update on what's happened, it's there updated immediately for the customer services officer who's answering the phone. So they don't have to get back to them after talking to the animal management officers. Just one other area I want to draw your attention to is accounts payable. So we've automated the checking process for goods receipting. And this has enabled us to reduce FTE, but it's been a really good news story as those FTE have been able to be redeployed elsewhere in the council as part of normal employment that we were going to do anyway. So that's what we're trying to get to with this robotic process automation, so that we are not just taking staff out and losing their jobs. So, and the good news story as well is that the RPA programme was recognised at Algem in November 2018, winning the best use of new emerging technology for Auckland Council.
Could you just define the acronym, please?
It's what is it? Associate Local Government in Management, something like that. Information management, is it? Yeah, thank you.
All good. Right, any questions? Councillor Walker.
Just got a general question. I don't know whether this is the appropriate time to ask it, but have we done a re-evaluation of SAP as it goes to our facilities? And the reason I ask that is the information that I get from people at the front line is that program is causing considerable difficulties
Through the chair. So the new core program was delivered probably about 18 months ago now. It would be fair to say, like any major ERP, there is an embedding process. And there has been, if you take a step back and think combining 7 to 8 local bodies into a single entity, which allows us to have a regional view of all the services, there's quite a long embedding process. There has been lots of change, I suppose, in the demands from the business and also from citizens of Auckland for the services that we undertake. So simple answer is, we're pretty comfortable. The SAP program delivered the benefits that it was there for. In reality, it laid a foundation for the organisation then to move forward. There is lots of continual improvement work that continues to continue post that. And actually the program I'm about to talk to is one of the things that's actually leveraged what that major SAP has actually allowed us to do.
Just further to that, my understanding is that there are issues around inflexibility. There are issues around making modifications to it at very high cost, and the problems around that as it goes to an organisation that's, I would suggest, reasonably dynamic, particularly in terms of its customer interface. So I'm just suggesting it would be useful to have some reporting to us on that at some point. Thank you.
Right. Who's next? Mark, are you on? Yep.
Through the chair. Look, it's quite pleasing to be here actually to talk about this particular project. As I just mentioned, this is one of those new technologies that we've been able to undertake because of the consolidation of the legacy councils. What we're talking about here is for the building inspectors. It's actually allowing us to mobilise and gain quite a lot of efficiencies across the building inspectors. What I'm really pleased about, it's been a very close joint work project between my team, the ICT team, and actually Ian and the building control team. And fairly rapid development on some new technology that's actually delivered some really good benefits. The good thing is at the last committee meeting, it was just me talking. This time I've invited Ian because I thought it would be great to hear from the people who are living in that space to actually talk about some of the benefits. But I just wanted to give you a couple of headlines to it. It is about mobilising. If you think about an inspector previous to this, they'd have to check in the morning, lots of admin staff to create the work schedule of the inspections that needed to be done, collating the paperwork that they would require to take out into field. They'd then undertake their inspections, and then they'd have to bring that information back, and then that would have to be keyed back into the systems. This has actually automated that process, removed all of that paper handling at the front end and at the back end. It would be fair to say the benefits that we put in, on average, and Ian can probably talk about this, it was just over 5 inspections per inspector per day, where the benefits that we'd put in for this business case was to take us to just over 6 inspections. I think it would be fair to say, I think it was on the Wednesday of the first week, we had inspectors calling up saying they had actually finished it at about midday and were looking for more work to do. So we're very comfortable in, I suppose, the benefits that have been delivered through this program. There's lots of really good stats and lots of good commentary from the internal teams. But I just want to give you one other perspective. Probably, like me, most of you have been at a barbecue and have heard the story about a building inspection where they've had a second inspector different from the first and concerns about the quality. They're inspecting something different than what had been done in the first instance. What's really cool about this tool is that all the information from the first inspector is actually available to that second inspector, including photos, all of the information about that previous inspection. And it also allows, Ian and the team have created a quality advice on how the inspections need to be undertaken. and they can actually see and, I suppose, train on the job as to how we expect the inspections to be undertaken. And, you know, we feel that's going to drive the quality of the inspections, especially those post and the following on inspections. And I'd like to hand over to Ian now to give his view.
Thank you, Mark. This tool here is a best of breed tool. So over the years, many years, I've had an opportunity to look at just about every other piece of inspection recording tool that's used by any of the probably 70 odd BCAs around the country. This is the best one that's available, and we built it right here. It actually distills a lot of the industry knowledge of the top people in my team into this one device in a way that's intuitive and easy to use. It's absolutely brilliant. If we can move it on to the next slide. So just in terms of context, we're delivering here 160,000 building inspections a year. It's a massive number. It's probably like 48% of, I guess, the nation's total all being delivered through here. We're doing about 16,000 swimming pool inspections, and we're able to record them all on this tool. It's really intuitive. Really, the only complaint I've had from anyone is someone who was complaining that his laptop no longer recognised him. So most of the staff log on using facial recognition. He'd been away on leave for about 3 months. He'd had the tool to practice on beforehand. He'd grown a heavy beard and didn't recognise him. That's about the only thing that I've actually heard where people are actually expressing concern. One of the big investments we've made is developing what we call a code of practice for our inspections team. So it's a 27 training module unit that we use with our team. We've managed to incorporate the guidance information actually into this. So when an inspector's actually going through using the tool and opening up, for example, looking at a accessible stair route or something, it identifies what the elements are that need to be checked. And also if someone's not sure, they can just ask and tick the guidance information. Why is that so powerful now for us? It's powerful now for us because we're seeing more complexity in our built environment than we've ever seen before. The rate of increase is massive. If I think of the increase of our really complex residential homes and our terraced housing and multi-level units, these are increasing from up to 23 to 20% more of that type of building work than we've got with simple standalone buildings that we typically build. So I'm rapidly having to try and up the competency of my team and ensure that they're actually getting as much support as they can when they're on site. This tool provides that with that easy link. In the first week, we were able to upload 11,000 documents. And a large percentage of those were additional photographs, which are really easy for us to be able to take and record, enabling our staff to be able to have conversations with their support back in the office and actually obtain new learnings about different parts of the work they might have. It also enables customers to be able to send back photographs of areas that they need to fix up after the last inspection, through the photograph to be able to confirm that work's been done and we don't need to do a re-inspection. So it enables that build work to continue on at pace, enables us to be able to redeploy that resource to something that's where it's needed better. So it's a really, really, really cool tool, and yeah, Mark's a great guy for helping us develop it.
Through the chair, and probably the real benefit is we've built some capability both in Ian's team and in mine, and the platform allows us to develop more capability. So anywhere where we'd like to mobilise our staff, we've built a platform that's going to allow us to continue to do more. We've got a great success story, so you know we're looking for the next couple of items where we can drive some more efficiencies and quality.
Very good. That's all quite good news. I mean, you're helping us cover some of the increased levies that we're going to approve later on. So, Megov.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think that's fantastic news. And you've given us a bit of an indication, you know, if each inspector's able to do 6 inspections a day instead of 5, that's a big productivity increase. What systems do you have in place to measure both the quality improvement and the productivity increase over time because of your introduction of this new technology?
And so one of the things that we've also built into this tool is the ability to be able to provide supervision records. So when of our staff is going through and developing their competency, it also supports additional records on how that person's performing, any areas that they need to work on or extra training or mentoring they need. That's all in this tool. It also enables us to pull out a lot more information about what are the reasons the industry's inspections are failing, what are some of the issues out there, because it's all captured on this, we can run reports straight out of it. And so we've got, well, this tool enables us to have a lot more information about why are inspections failing, understanding and identifying some of those trends early. So hopefully, Mr. Mayor, that answers your question.
Yeah, my question, I appreciate all of those things. They're fantastic. But my question is, how do you measure actually what the improvements are? Have you got anything in place so that, 12 months out from the start of this process, you'll be able to indicate you've been able to do X, Y, Z at greater efficiency, greater customer satisfaction, less cost? And the other question, I guess I'd add to that, how does this new system compare to what other local bodies are doing around New Zealand?
So in terms of the benefits realisation of this tool, one of these indicators is customer satisfaction. And we're confident we'll start to see an improvement in that, simply because this tool enables the inspection record along with the photographs, which of course it's much more efficient for us to load up, so we can provide more visual keys for people to understand what they need to do to be able to pass inspections they may have failed. So that's a real benefit. We're also looking at increased productivity in terms of the number of inspections we can actually do, but we're also very conscious of the need to balance that with qualitative information to ensure that those inspections are actually being passed for the right reason. The photographic information that accompanies the inspections enables my team leaders and supervisory staff to be able to review these records to make sure we're making the right decisions on site as well.
And how does that compare with other local authorities?
I've seen other tools that other local authorities have had over the last 10 years or so, and this is the best one that's out there at the moment.
Councillor Talpano, if there's any questions, you can roll it into comments as well.
Ian, you mentioned about the documents that have been downloaded onto the computers. What systems do we have in place around those not going to the wrong places or getting access to by others?
So this tool is a lot more flexible than the one we had previously, in that if someone's picking up additional inspections that weren't originally part of what they were scheduled to perform, they can readily pick that information up, and also the background information regarding previous inspections all on this tool as well. So I'm not sure if that was what you're asking.
Through the chair. So all the devices are securely locked down, as Ian mentioned, so it requires a council user identification and password. Although these devices are quite clever, they use facial recognition, but they're completely locked down. So you have to be a known user to be able to access the information, and actually you can't send that information further out.
Okay, and last question, you've got on the last slide, go live stats and feedback. Were there any negative feedback? It's good seeing all the positive ones, but sometimes people don't want to put the negative ones there because they want to have a positive image. But were there any negative comments made? And if so, were there ones that were basic in nature in regards to IT?
So, and this is one of the only IT rollouts where there's effectively been no complaints at all. It's the tool is really so intuitive. It's really uncommon. The team did an awful lot of work in terms of the implementation to make sure that the staff were ready to use the device. In fact, they actually had these 2 months before we actually rolled the actual application out, so they could get familiar with using it. There was that complaint about someone who found that the computer wouldn't recognise them with facial recognition, which is only a choice in terms of logging onto the system, but certainly very common because it works so well. Universally, people have found it really, really easy to use. And probably one of the best indicators is, from a business perspective, what we normally see when we roll new technology out is we get a performance dip. And that performance dip is usually an indicator of how intuitive the system is. Are we asking people to do something new and extra? And also how much training we put in. In this case, we got a slight dip on the first week when we actually rolled it out. And then we were pretty much back up to normal productivity in week 2, which is unheard of from my perspective.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Thank you for your report, and I commend Councillor Simpson for recommending that you present to Finance and Performance Committee, because it is good news of what you're presenting. My question is, if I take your barbecue analogy, what do you expect the comments to be at that barbecue now with these changes that you've implemented?
I think increasingly they're going to be talking about how helpful the inspector was, because they were able to provide them information that's on here and actually explain to them why they're making a particular decision. In some cases, some builders will, ask a question from a building inspector and want to understand if they actually know what they're talking about. And remember, I've got a lot of folk who are increasing in their competency at the moment to be able to deal with that change and complexity out in the industry. This tool enables them to effectively, it supports their expertise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason why I asked that question, and this is a comment, not a question, is because I really want to keep the focus on the client, the customer, the community, and I really take comfort from point 9 in our agenda, where it says the savings target is set at a level to provide enough focus on efficiencies without detriment to agreed service levels or health and safety. So important that we don't, that doesn't have any detriment to our service levels. But also, if we could have some consistency with our 17A review, because the 17A review does talk about cost effectiveness, but it's cost effectiveness of current arrangements for meeting the needs of communities. So that focus should always be at the forefront of what we're doing to try and save money. So I just wanted to put that point out there, and perhaps maybe you could incorporate that in some of your reporting as well. Might make it easier for councillors to report it back to communities, especially regarding Work Smart or Workspace. Work Smart, yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Casey.
Ian, from the customer perspective, is it now fully automated?
The customer is able to book a building inspection digitally. They're now able to receive the results of their inspection digitally, and also an update in terms of the date and time of their inspection digitally as well. So, yeah, it's
the answer is yes.
It's highly digital. Yeah.
All right. There's no one else except Councillor Simpson to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you very much for the opportunity to bring this to the full Councillor Mayor forum as part of Finance and Performance. The frustration I have quite often is that the Auckland resident says, you're not saving money, you're not doing enough to be more efficient, you're spending too much, etc., right? And what this actually does is tangibly put it in front of each and every one of you exactly what the staff are actually doing. And I know it's only 6 months, but I think it's a message that each of us have to take out into our own communities and make sure people understand. These people are doing a great job, and it's terribly disheartening, I suppose, for me to hear only the bad news reported and not of the good news. So I'm looking at the media, although I don't think they're listening to me, but I'm looking at the media and saying, you know, come on, where is the promotion of the fact that we are doing a very good job with regards to savings and efficiencies this term? You know, 21 million more savings in the last LTP per year. It's great, you know. And I just want to commend the team for what they're doing. And Councillor Bartley is exactly right. It's savings and being more efficient without losing the levels of service. So congratulations, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to move this. And I do trust that it has everyone's support. Thank you.
And Todd's busy writing all of that down, I can see. I'm going to allow one more question from the Mayor. He just popped in just before you went to speak, Councillor Simpson. So.
Thanks very much, and absolutely endorse what Councillor Simpson has said. My question is this, and it's to Rob. We skipped over you and you avoided any questions. It's great that we've got the $62 million in savings. It's a significant sum of money, and it's significantly up on last time. But on page 5 of your presentation, you talk about the 10-year savings being $560 million. Now that, I understand, doesn't include value for money, and it doesn't include the corporate strategy savings. It's a big jump from 62 to 560. So my question is, one, it's great to have a target like that. How confident are you of reaching it? And how do you get to that figure from 62? Because that's a considerable sum over 10 years, $500 million in savings.
So through the chair, with all our savings that we set through the budgeting process, the key component to it needs to be an enduring savings. We're not looking for one-off savings. What we've got to do is identify something that will be continuous throughout the 10-year period. Otherwise, we'd have to be circling back continuously to find that savings. So when we look at, and we quoted the figure for the half-year result, we're basically extrapolating that out over the 10 years. We're locking that in as an ongoing saving. So that $13 million that we've already realised will be a $13 million every year going forward. So it's a cumulative effect of that savings coming through the budgeting process. So in terms of how confident we are, because we're tackling this, I guess, in the front loaded through the LTP process, we're tackling it now. It gives us a lot of, I guess, confidence that we will achieve that overall 10-year number.
All right. Well, thank you, team. Thank you, Ian, Mark, Robert, Debbie, and Rod. We'll put the motion split by Councillor Simpson, second by the Mayor. All those in favour? Against? All right. That was for a good report. There was wild enthusiasm there. Right, we're going to go on to Auckland Council Green Bonds, and we have Andrew